welcome to this video series called Don't Fear the Horn. My name is Richard Stegel, and in this video I'm going to be taking you on a brief journey through the history of the horn. A lot of the differences between the French horn and the other brass instruments have been created by how the different instruments have developed over time. A little bit of knowledge can really help us understand how these differences came about, and might, just might, leave you being a little bit more sympathetic towards the plight of the troublesome French horn. The history of the horn as we know it today really starts with the instruments used in the royal hunt in the mid-16th century. Technology had been developed to be able to bend a sheet of metal into a hoop with a conical bell section. The circular nature of the horn allowed the horseback rider to carry a long instrument, but these early hunting horns were basically just circular trumpets. So this is the kind of horn that Mozart would have written for around 250 years ago. Although it's got no valves, developments to the instrument between around 1690 and 1760 meant that this horn has many of the characteristics of the modern French horn. It was no longer held in the air, but the bell was brought down to make it more sociable in indoor musical settings. The horn was longer than those early hunting horns and was also more conical with this large flared bell. This is what gives the horn its signature mellow tone. At the other end, we have crooks, which come in a variety of lengths, meaning the horn can play in different keys. In the classical period, some of the most common keys were F, E flat and D. The mouthpiece, which now had to be removable so we could put the crooks in the horn, mirrored the shape of the horn, so was also conical. As the bell flare became larger, players started experimenting with moving their hand inside the bell. The development of hand technique is commonly attributed to Anton Hampel around the end of the first half of the 18th century. You could, of course, already play the notes of the harmonic series on the natural horn, but by moving the hand, you could also get the notes in between. This technique was only initially used by a limited number of classical soloists, but by around 1800, hand technique was also needed in orchestral parts. With the left hand just holding the instrument, most players used their dominant right hand in the bell. When the valve was invented in around 1818, it gave brass players, without a slide on their instrument, potential to play chromatically for the first time, without changing the timbre of their instrument, either by moving their hand in the bell, or by opening and closing holes on an instrument like a keyed trumpet. Many horn players and composers, however, were very reluctant to adopt this new technology, and even those that did wanted to use valves initially as a substitute for crooks. They still wanted to use their right hand in the bell, so the valves were played by their left hand and were just used to lower the key of the instrument. In fact, if they played a horn in the key of F, they could press down the second valve to lower the horn by a semitone into the key of E, first valve to lower the horn by a tone to the key of E flat, and 1 and 2 to lower the instrument by a tone and a half to play in the key of D. So valve horns started to be standardised in the key of F, which also seemed to be a real sweet spot for the tone of the instrument, not too bright and not too dark. As the 19th century progressed, valves eventually replaced right-hand movement pretty much altogether. In fact, these days, unless we're hand-stopping, most horn players keep their right hands fairly stationary. So that was the path that the horn travelled. So how did the modern horn and the modern trumpet become so different? If, for example, we look at a Mozart symphony and look at the trumpet and horn parts in the first or last movements, they often look fairly similar. Before the invention of the valve, both instruments had to rely on the harmonic series, which looked identical for the trumpet and the horn, the instruments being pitched an octave apart. We can see that middle C was the fourth harmonic for both instruments, and there'll be much more on the harmonic series in chapter 4. But by the time Beethoven wrote his Eroica Symphony in 1803, horn parts and trumpet parts were diverging. Orchestral horn parts were becoming much, much, much more interesting and exciting.
All right, Dave, you okay?
Not really, Bob. Pretty depressed as it goes.
Oh dear, why's that?
I'll tell you why, my friend.
Take the other day, got this hotshot Ludwig van Beethoven in town. Everyone's all excited and that. Here comes the next big thing, blah, blah, blah. And what does he get me to play? Da, 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 da. Well, I suppose that makes your life easy. No, Bob. No, it does not. Because then I want to go and do a bit of work with my mate who plays the organ in the chapel. And they want me to do a bit of flashy stuff. Well, I mean, I have to spend hours and hours practicing my blooming lip trills, always right up there in the stratosphere. Blimey, makes my lips bleed. You don't get these problems, do you, Bob? Well, no. We use our hand in the bell. Of course, it's very tricky and incredibly subtle. It's an art, you know. Does mean we can stay nicely in that middle register, which does save on bleeding lips. Lucky bugger. If only there was a way of being able to play a lovely middle register tune. That's all I want. A lovely middle register tune. A lovely middle register tune. Ah, gentlemen, I've got this marvellously natty instrument called a cornet. These clever chaps Stolzel and Blumel have invented this whiz-bang thing called the valve, so I can play all the chromatic notes on the cornet, just like that. It doesn't have to be as long as your natural trumpet, because I don't need those close together harmonics. Makes it rather easy, ha-ha, and rather fun. Good luck with those lip trills, old boy. Oh my God, I've just had a vision of the future, and I think I like it.
It was not just the cornet that was shaking up the brass world. The invention of the valve ushered in a stream of brass instruments, including the sax horns developed by Adolph Sax, which include the tenor horn and baritone. It took a while, but eventually the trumpet shaped up and lost some weight, or at least some length, and joined the new band of brass instruments with middle C as the second harmonic. Meanwhile, the stubborn French horn stuck with its small mouthpiece and long tube in F, struggling on with those higher harmonics. Why? For one simple reason: its sound. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, beauty has a price. And to be able to make this wonderful sound, horn players have to do daily battle with this silly, inefficient piece of pipe. During the second half of the 19th century, the patience of horn players was being tested by composers who were writing tougher and tougher music for brass players. They needed greater stamina and a larger range. So some players switched onto a shorter horn pitched in B flat, which seemed to be a solution. However, this horn had some problems, particularly in the middle register, where the intonation and sound often weren't good, and there were also a selection of missing low notes. A solution was offered by the German maker Crusper, who, in 1887, filed a patent for a new horn design featuring a fourth valve, which allowed it to play in both F and B flat. The rotary valved double horn that we know today had arrived. So that's how some of the differences between the French horn and the other brass instruments arose. In the next chapter, we're going to be detailing exactly what those differences are, and I look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, please like, comment and subscribe. But for now, it's goodbye.